Hello everyone and welcome to today's 6th grade ELA lesson. I created a PowerPoint that I'm going to share with you. And the topic of today's lesson is subjective, objective, and possessive pronouns. Okay, so our learning goal is I can recognize appropriate pronoun cases. And those 3 cases are subjective, objective, and possessive pronouns. So on today's agenda, we're first going to be reviewing some vocabulary terms as well as some examples. Then we'll be doing an activity where we identify the pronoun type, again for subjective, objective, and possessive pronouns. And finally, we will be identifying these 3 pronoun types in various passages. Then we will recap and conclude the lesson. So for your materials, you will need paper and pencil. So let's start off with some vocabulary terms. We have a noun, a verb, and a pronoun, and these are all parts of speech. So a noun is a person, place, or thing, such as a dog, a woman, or a man, or a student. Those are all examples of nouns. A verb is an action or state of being, things like moving, or run, or climb, or walked. All of those are examples of verbs. And then we have pronouns, and pronouns are a word that substitutes for a noun, such as he, him, his, or we, us, ours. So basically, instead of saying something like the man is walking to the store, the man being our noun, our subject, we could say he is walking to the store, and he would be our pronoun. Or instead of saying Jill and I are going to get coffee, I could say we are going to get coffee. And we is the pronoun that substitutes for the noun, in this case, Jill and I. So again, pronouns are words that substitute for a noun. So pronouns can almost be like a little more vague, whereas nouns are almost a little more specific. All right, so other vocabulary terms. So we talked about the pronoun, how a pronoun is a word that substitutes for a noun. And there are 3 types of pronouns that we're going to talk about in this lesson. So we have a subjective pronoun, which is the subject of a sentence. So it's going to perform the action of the verb. So subjective pronouns are things like I, you, he, she, it, we, they. So for example, I moved the couch. So I being the subject of the sentence, and I'm performing the action of the verb, which is moving. I moved the couch. Okay. Next is objective pronouns. And objective pronouns are basically the object of a sentence. So they're going to receive the action of the verb. So using my example of I moved the couch, for the couch, I could say it. So the couch is receiving the action of the verb. So I moved it. I moved the couch. So it is an example of an objective pronoun. So some other examples of objective pronouns include things like me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. Those are all examples of objective pronouns. Now there's one last type, and that is the possessive pronoun. And the possessive pronoun demonstrates ownership. So examples of these are words like mine, yours, his, hers, its, ours, and theirs. For example, those shoes are mine. So I am demonstrating ownership of those shoes. That's what possessive pronouns are. Or for example, those scooters are ours. So in other words, we are demonstrating ownership of those scooters. Those scooters are ours. All right, so on your piece of paper, I would like you to copy down subjective pronoun, objective pronoun, and possessive pronoun, and then write down the examples of each. So I'll give you time to pause the video and do that. All right, so after you're all done with that, we also have this chart here. And so this chart goes through the 3 types of pronouns discussed in this lesson, which are subject pronouns, object pronouns, and possessive pronouns. And so it kind of gives just like a brief overview of all of these. Make sure that you have this copied down as well. And those 2 charts will overlap. So the one that you already copied down and this one will kind of overlap. So you can just add the words that might not already be on there. So I'll let you pause the video and add any missing words. Awesome. Okay, so now I'm going to provide some examples of each pronoun in context. So the first pronoun that we talked about was the subjective pronoun. And the subjective pronoun is the subject of a sentence, so it performs the action of the verb. So remember, a verb can be an action or a state of being. So for this example, it'll actually be just a state of being. So examples of subjective pronouns are I, you, he, she, it, we, and they. And subject pronouns usually tend to come at the beginning of a sentence, but not always. Like for example, we could say, today we went to the park. We is the subjective pronoun, but it's not necessarily at the way beginning. So there are always exceptions. For this one though, it will be at the beginning of the sentence. So I have, this is Oliver. He is a good puppy. He would be the subjective pronoun. Again, we have it in our list right here. We have he as one of the examples of a subjective pronoun. So we can see that the focus, the main subject is Oliver, and that he is a good puppy, subjective pronoun. All right, moving on to our next pronoun. Here's another example of a subjective pronoun. Again, the subject of a sentence. It performs the action of the verb. We could say, and in this case, it's also the state of being. We could say, this is a beautiful mountain. It being the subjective pronoun, is so majestic. My friend visits it a lot. She, another subjective pronoun, likes to hike. Sometimes we, another subjective pronoun, hike together. So you can see that it, she, we, these can all be used as subjective pronouns. And again, all of these should be on your list. So something to refer to. These are all subjective pronouns. Now let's move on to a different type of pronoun, the objective pronoun. The objective pronoun is the object of a sentence, so it's going to be receiving the action of the verb. And so some examples of objective pronouns are me, you, him, her, it, us, and them. For example, her mom asked her to wash the dishes. Notice that our first her is not going to be an objective pronoun because it's not really the object of a sentence. But this one is the object of a sentence. Her mom asked her. So she's receiving the action. She's receiving the question being asked about washing the dishes. So this her is going to be an object pronoun. So her mom asked her to wash the dishes. And then she washed them after dinner was over. So them in this case is receiving the action. The dishes, them, they're receiving the action. So those are objective pronouns. Now, one thing that I wanted to point out really quick is that some sentences can actually have multiple types of pronouns. So for example, with the sentence, she washed them after dinner was over, yes, we have an object pronoun, the object of a sentence, but we also have a subjective pronoun, which is she. She is our subjective pronoun. So we have she, subjective pronoun, washed them, objective pronoun, after dinner was over. So again, her, them, and all of these, me, you, him, it, us, etc., are all object pronouns. They receive the action of the verb. Okay, moving on to our last type of pronoun that will be discussed in this lesson. These are possessive pronouns. Possessive pronouns demonstrate ownership. So for example, this gift is yours. That house is theirs. These books are mine. This pair of shoes is hers. This school is ours. These all demonstrate ownership. So again, mine, yours, theirs, hers, ours, these are all possessive pronouns. Okay, so now we're going to do an activity where we identify the pronoun type. And so I'm going to guide you through some of these first. So to show an example, so basically, I have an underlined pronoun, in this case it's she, and your job will be to identify which type of pronoun this is. And remember, you can refer to the chart that you wrote down to figure out which pronouns fall in which category. So for our first sentence, we have, she is an artist. So my question is the word she a subjective pronoun, an object pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? So if you said it's a subjective pronoun, You are correct. That's because she is the subject of the sentence, kind of like the main focus of the sentence, for she is an artist. All right, our next one, identify which type of pronoun this is. So we have these books are hers. Is hers a subjective pronoun, an object pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? Again, subjective pronoun means it's the subject of the sentence. Object pronoun means it's receiving the action, and possessive pronoun means that it's demonstrating ownership. So for these books are hers, if you said it demonstrates ownership, meaning it's possessive pronoun, you are correct. It is a possessive pronoun. All right, let's try another one. So we've got she is congratulating them. So she referring to this lady right here. So she is congratulating them. Let's start with she. Is she going to be a subjective pronoun, an object pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? If you said subjective pronoun, you are correct. Now we do have one more pronoun, and that is them. Is them a subjective pronoun, meaning it's the subject of a sentence, an object pronoun, meaning it receives the action, or a possessive pronoun, demonstrating ownership? If you said them is an object pronoun, you are correct. So for our two pronouns, we have she is a subjective pronoun. She is the subject. And then them is our object pronoun. And they, the team right here, are receiving the action. In this case, they're receiving the congratulations. All right, so now it's time for some independent practice of identifying the pronoun type. So it's the same activity, except you get to do it. Okay, so are these guinea pigs yours? You get to determine if yours is a subjective pronoun, an object pronoun, or a possessive pronoun. So I'll let you pause the video and figure out which one it might be. If you said possessive pronoun, you are correct. Asking someone, are these guinea pigs yours, is basically asking, are you the owner of these guinea pigs? So basically it does demonstrate ownership. So it's a possessive pronoun. And honestly, anyone would want these guinea pigs. Like, they're adorable. All right, and moving on. Identify the underlined pronoun for this one. Did you know that today is my hedgehog's birthday? So for this pronoun you, is it a subjective pronoun, an object pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? If you said subjective pronoun, you are correct. You is the subject of the sentence. Did you know? So they're asking a person, in this case, you, a subjective pronoun. Okay, moving on. That kitten is theirs. He weighs 2 pounds. So we have two pronouns here. Let's do theirs first. Is theirs a subjective pronoun where it talks about the subject of the sentence? Is it an object pronoun where it receives the action? Or is it a possessive pronoun where it is demonstrating ownership? Someone owns it. If you said it's a possessive pronoun, you are correct. The kitten is being owned by someone. The kitten is theirs. What about the pronoun he? For he weighs 2 pounds. Is he a subjective pronoun, an object pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? If you said he is a subjective pronoun, you are correct. So just to recap, theirs is going to be a possessive pronoun. They own the kitten. And he is going to be a subjective pronoun, he being the subject of the sentence. He weighs 2 pounds. Okay, next one. They asked us to play baseball with them. Is they going to be a subjective pronoun, the subject of a sentence, an object pronoun receiving the action, or a possessive pronoun demonstrating ownership? For they asked us to play baseball with them. If you said that they is a subjective pronoun, you are correct. What about the word us? Is us the subject of a sentence? Or is us receiving the action? Or is us demonstrating ownership? They asked us to play baseball with them. If you said that us is an object pronoun, you are correct. So they is a subjective pronoun and refers to the subject of a sentence. They asked us. And then us is an object pronoun. It receives the action. In this case, it receives the question being asked about playing baseball. So they asked us to play baseball with them. All right, next one. We have another adorable hedgehog here. And it says, we have a hedgehog named Jerry. He enjoys resting on that soft blanket. So is we going to be a subjective pronoun, subject of a sentence, an object pronoun receiving the action, or a possessive pronoun demonstrating ownership? If you said that we is a subjective pronoun, you are correct. It is the subject of the sentence. What about this one, he? For he enjoys resting on that soft blanket. Is he a subjective pronoun, an objective pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? If you said that he is a subjective pronoun, you are correct. He is the subject of that sentence. What about this one? We ate several donuts after the celebration. Is we going to be a subjective pronoun, an objective pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? If you said that we is a subjective pronoun, you are correct. We being the subject of the sentence. It's a subjective pronoun. What about this one? Did I tell you I recently got a hamster? So let's start out with I. Is I going to be a subjective pronoun, an objective pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? If you said that I is a subjective pronoun, you are correct. It is the subject of a sentence. I is the subject of that sentence. What about you? Is you a subjective pronoun, the subject of a sentence? Or is you an object pronoun receiving the action? Or is you a possessive pronoun demonstrating ownership? If you said that you is an object pronoun, you are correct. You are receiving the action of me telling you that I recently got a hamster. So that's why you is going to be an object pronoun. And then once again, I is a subjective pronoun. All right, next one. She is reading a book of theirs. So is she going to be a subjective pronoun, an object pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? If you said that she is a subjective pronoun, you are correct. She is the subject, the main focus of the sentence. What about theirs? Is theirs a subjective pronoun, an objective pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? If you said that theirs is a possessive pronoun, you are correct. For she is reading a book of theirs, it's talking about their book, the book that they own. That's why theirs is a possessive pronoun. So again, she is a subjective pronoun. Theirs is a possessive pronoun. What about this one? Do you know him? Is you a subjective pronoun, subject of a sentence, an objective pronoun receiving the action, or a possessive pronoun demonstrating ownership? For do you know him? If you said that you is a subjective pronoun, the subject of a sentence, then you are correct. What about him? Is him going to be subjective, objective, or possessive? If you said that him is an objective pronoun, you are correct. So again, you is a subjective pronoun and him is an objective or object pronoun. What about this one? She didn't ask me if I knew how to make bracelets. Is she going to be a subjective pronoun, the subject of a sentence? Or is she going to be an objective pronoun, demonstrating the action, receiving the action? Or is she going to be a possessive pronoun, demonstrating ownership? If you said that she is a subjective pronoun, you are correct. Now for this one, there's a second pronoun, which is me. Is me, for she didn't ask me, is me going to be a subjective pronoun, an objective pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? If you said that me would be an objective pronoun, you are correct. So just to recap, she is going to be a subjective pronoun because she is the subject, and me is going to be an object pronoun because it's receiving the action. She didn't ask me. So I, me, and the one being asked. So again, that's receiving the action of the asking. All right, next one. Is that red bike his or yours? Is his a subjective pronoun, an objective pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? If you said that his is a possessive pronoun, you are correct. What about yours? Subjective, objective, or possessive? If you said that yours is also possessive, you are correct. His and yours both demonstrate ownership of that red bike. It's asking, oh, who owns that bike? Is it him or is it you? So is that red bike his or yours? Possessive pronouns. Awesome. All right, what about this one? I'm not sure what the answer is. Let's ask him. So is I'm, which is the same as I am, is the I and I'm subjective pronoun, objective pronoun, or possessive pronoun? So you've said that the I and I'm is a subjective pronoun. You are correct. I is the subject of the sentence. What about him? Subjective, objective, or possessive for him? If you said it was an objective pronoun, you are correct. And that's because it receives the action. We're going to be asking him. So he's going to receive that action, in this case, the question. So we've got I is a subjective pronoun. I'm is the same as I am, so I is the subjective pronoun. And then we've got him, which is an object pronoun, objective pronoun. Okay, what about this one? For my birthday, my friend gave me a painting she had bought. Do you like it? Is you going to be a subjective pronoun, an objective pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? If you said that you is a subjective pronoun, you are correct. It's the subject, the main focus of the sentence. What about it? Is it subjective, objective, or a possessive pronoun? If you said that it is going to be an objective pronoun, you are correct. So again, you is a subjective pronoun. It's the subject of a sentence. And it is going to be an objective pronoun. It receives the action. Do you like it? So again, subjective and objective. Okay, so now we're going to transition into a similar type of activity, but a little bit different. We'll be identifying the types of pronouns, but for passages. Okay, and so I have all of the pronouns underlined here, and your job will be to put each pronoun under the correct category. So for example, would he go under subjective, objective, or possessive? So I'll explain it after I read the passage. Okay, so the passage says, Luke has a leopard gecko named Leo. Leo is 16 years old, and he is originally from Pakistan. Luke takes good care of him. Leopard geckos like Leo can grow up to 10 inches long. Luke is hoping that Leo will be his for a long, long time. Okay, so on your piece of paper, I would like you to write down subjective pronoun, and then objective pronoun or object pronoun, and then possessive pronoun, and leave a little space in between each one so that you can write the pronouns underneath each list. So you pause the video and write subjective pronoun, and then objective pronoun, and then possessive pronoun. Okay, so now what you get to do is put the pronoun he under whichever category it belongs, then the pronoun him under whichever category it belongs, and then the pronoun his, under whichever category it belongs. So I'll let you pause the video and do that. All right, so after you're done with that, let's double check our work. So for he is originally from Pakistan, he is the subject of the sentence, he referring to Leo. So he is going to be a subjective pronoun. So I'll put him right here under the subjective pronoun column. What about him? Luke takes good care of him. If you wrote that him is going to be an objective pronoun or object pronoun, then you are correct. Him goes under this category. What about his? Well, his is a possessive pronoun because it's demonstrating ownership, because Luke owns Leo. Leo is his pet. So Luke is hoping that Leo will be his for a long, long time. His is going to be a possessive pronoun, so it goes in this category. Okay, so we have he, subjective pronoun, him, objective pronoun or object pronoun, and his, possessive pronoun. What about this passage? Again, we'll be taking the pronouns and putting them in a category for each pronoun. So here's our passage. Rosie and Blake used to have a scooter they would take turns riding. They liked to ride around the neighborhood in the morning. After a while, Blake bought himself a scooter and told Rosie that the other one could be hers. I brought my scooter over one day, and the three of us circled around the neighborhood. I enjoyed racing them that day. It's a favorite memory of mine. So, let's start with the first pronoun, which is they. So on your piece of paper, I'd like you to write they under whichever category you think it falls under. Is it a subjective pronoun? Or is they an objective pronoun? Or is they a possessive pronoun? So write down they under whichever category you think best fits. All right, and after you're all done with that, we're going to move on to our next pronoun, which is hers. And the sentence is, after a while, Blake bought himself a scooter and told Rosie that the other one could be hers. So is hers going to be a subjective pronoun, an object pronoun, or a possessive pronoun for hers? So write hers under whichever category that you think is correct. So if you wrote hers under the possessive pronouns category, you are correct. Blake is telling Rosie that she can own the other scooter, so it's demonstrating ownership. Okay, what about the pronoun I? Is I going to be a subjective pronoun, an objective pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? Write it under whichever category. So write the word I under whichever category best fits. Awesome. Okay. Now we have another pronoun of I, but it would be the same thing. So whatever category you wrote it for, it'd be the same thing. Okay. And so I is going to be a subjective pronoun. It's the subject of the sentence. I being the subject of the sentence for both of these sentences. What about the pronoun them? I enjoyed racing them that day. Is them going to be a subjective pronoun, an objective pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? So write it under whichever category you think is best. So if you said that them is an objective pronoun, then you are correct. It receives the action. They are receiving the action of me racing them is basically what it's saying. So I enjoyed racing them receiving the action that day. What about our last pronoun, mine, for it's a favorite memory of mine? Is mine going to be a subjective pronoun, an objective pronoun, or a possessive pronoun? For mine, it's a favorite memory of mine. And I'll have you write it down under whichever category you think is correct. So if you said that or wrote down that mine is a possessive pronoun, you are correct. So just to review, they and I are both subjective pronouns. They are the subject of the sentence. Them is an object pronoun because it's receiving that action. And then possessive pronouns are hers and mine, demonstrating ownership. It's talking about Rose's scooter, which is hers. And it's talking about my memory. So my memory, a favorite memory of mine. So these are our possessive pronouns. Okay, awesome job. So just to recap our lesson, we talked about subjective, objective, and possessive pronouns, so 3 of the type of pronouns. Our learning goal was I can recognize appropriate pronoun cases, those being subjective, objective, and possessive pronouns. Our agenda, so what we did today, was we first reviewed some vocabulary terms as well as some examples of each. Then we identified the pronoun type for subjective, objective, and possessive pronouns. After that, we identified the pronoun types in the passages. And so our vocabulary terms that we focused on for today mostly were a pronoun, which is a word that substitutes for a noun, a subjective pronoun, which is the subject of a sentence, so it's the one that performs the action of the verb, such as I, you, he, she, it, we, they. Those are all subjective pronouns. Then we talked about objective pronouns, which are the object of a sentence. It's going to receive the action of the verb. Then I gave some examples of that, which are things like me, you, him, her, it, us, them. Those are all objective pronouns. Then we talked about possessive pronouns, which demonstrate ownership, such as mine, yours, his, hers, its, ours, theirs. Those are all possessive pronouns. Then we reviewed this chart, and you guys and girls copied down all of these pronouns so that you can refer to them for subjective pronouns, objective pronouns, and possessive pronouns. So I hope that you enjoyed today's lesson. I know that I certainly did, and I will see you back soon for another one.